You ever been driving down the road and the person in front of you is going just a little bit too slow? Come on. You can admit it. You're driving down the road and they're just, maybe they're going like the speed limit. Or like 5 miles under the speed limit. And then you're coming to an intersection where there's a traffic light, right? And you can see the traffic light in the distance and the light is green. And what are you thinking? Go! And then the light turns yellow. Now what does yellow mean? Speed up! And the person in front of you who's been going just a little bit too slow decides it's not safe to go all the way through the yellow. And so they stop on a yellow light of all things. Story is told about a woman who was in a great hurry and the gentleman in front of her, he was just going too slow. And then when the light turned yellow from green to yellow, he slams on the brakes and stops right there in the middle. What in the world? She was having a bad day, so she immediately let him know how she was feeling. She used the horn. She used some hand signals. She cracked the window and let her voice be heard. And all of a sudden, she hears a tap on her window and she looks, and there's a policeman standing next to her car. So she rolls down the window and he invites her to get out of the car, puts handcuffs on her, puts her in the back of a patrol car, takes her down to the station. She's searched, she's fingerprinted, she's put into a cell. A couple hours later, the policeman comes up and unlocks the cell and he gives her her bag of personal belongings and he says, "Ma'am, I'm terribly sorry. We've made such a mistake. I pulled you over when you were making all those gestures and using all that colorful language that was coming out of the crack of the window in your car, and I heard the horn, and when I pulled up, I saw on the back of your car, I saw that WWJD bumper sticker. And I saw the window sign that said, driving to Sunday school. And I saw the fish that you had on the back of your car, that Christian fish. And then I saw what you were doing, and so I knew immediately the car must be stolen." Reverend John Ortberg, he has a book study, and he wrote a great small group study. It's called When the Game is Over, All Pieces Go Back in the Box. And he wrote this, he said, "The world gets pretty tired of people who have Christian bumper stickers on their cars, Christian fish signs on their trunks, Christian books on their shelves, Christian stations on their radios, Christian jewelry hanging around their necks, Christian videos for their kids, Christian magazines laying around their house and on their coffee tables. But they don't actually have the life of Jesus in their bones. They don't have the love of Jesus in their hearts." The world's looking for authenticity. People outside the four walls of what we call the building of church are looking for authenticity. We've been examining the book of Zechariah, and as we said, Zechariah is a prophet. He lived around the 500 BC time frame, and he was involved and very vocal at a time when the Jews were coming back from exile. If you remember, the Jews had been the nation of Israel that God had chosen, and then they turned their backs on God, and the prophets had told them, "Don't do that, because if you do, we're going to lose our city, we're going to lose our protection." And so, they didn't listen, and so they lost the protection. And the warriors from Babylon came in and took over Jerusalem and knocked down the temple and sent them all into exile and took them off to Babylon, and that's where they lived. They were removed from their homeland was destroyed, and now they're living in a foreign place. They lived there for almost 70 years, and then they started coming back, and Zechariah starts speaking into them. Because God chose Zechariah to be the prophet. God chose Zechariah to be the voice, to be the mouthpiece. And through a series of dreams and visions, Zechariah speaks to the people. And so here we are in chapter 7, and so here's the situation. It's about December. Our December, not their December. And the year is 528 BC, and there's a group of people who have now come to the priest. These are kind of like union reps. You know what union reps are, right? All people are out there working, and there's this group of people that are chosen to go and speak on our behalf. And so they march up to the priest, who's Zechariah, and they come as representing the group of people who have returned. And now they've returned, and they're trying to rebuild the temple. Some of them are trying to do what God has called them to do. And while the temple's being rebuilt, they realize, uh-oh, time has come for us to do something that we've always done. We've always done this. And so they come to Zechariah and they say, do we need to keep doing this? And so then God uses Zechariah to respond to that question. And he says, say to the people of the land and to the priests, when you fasted and you mourned in the 5th month and in the 7th month for those 70 years, was it for me that you were fasting? And when you eat and when you drink, don't you eat and drink just for yourself? So God gives them an answer to their question, but he turns it around and he goes a little deeper and he starts to poke at some things that are a little sensitive for these people. It's the same thing Jesus does. And to understand what God is talking about, we got to understand what were these people doing that they said they had always done this way before. What is fasting? A lot of people think fasting is just don't eat. Because that's what affects us, right? Fasting is giving up something because you recognize that if I give up something, then I'm relying upon something else. And what is the something else we're relying upon? God. God. And so when these people were exiled, because they weren't really listening to God, right? So they get exiled, they're out in Babylon, they decided that what they would do is they would fast as a way of remembering what happened to their temple. Remember all the destruction that happened. And they're trying to convince themselves the whole time that they're doing this that it's for God. It's kind of funny, but I think God already remembers what happened. Why were they really doing the fast? The prophet Isaiah, back in chapter 64, as the prophet who came before Zechariah, says, we have all become unclean. All of our righteous deeds are like filthy rags. All of us wither like a leaf, like an autumn leaf that drops to the ground and then gets blown away by the wind. All of our righteous deeds. You know the rituals we have in church? You know the things that you guys tell me, we've always done it that way. The things that we think church is supposed to do, the candles that we're supposed to light, the way we're supposed to march, the way the inside is supposed to look. We're supposed to sit in uncomfortable pews. The pain is good for us. We've always done that. When Jesus went to the temple, people sat in hard wooden pews in rows. No, they didn't. We create rituals and we think we're creating them for God, but are we truly creating them for God? Because the prophet Isaiah says, all of those things that you're creating, those are like filthy rags. And filthy rags is not just like dirty rags that you dust your house with. Filthy rags is a little more descriptive. It's a used feminine product. It is like the worst thing that they could think of, being unclean. And he says, that's what your rituals are all about. And so God continues, and he speaks through Zechariah again. He says, should you not have obeyed the words which the Lord proclaimed through the former prophets when you were in Jerusalem? When you were prosperous? When the lands around you to the south and the lowlands were all inhabited? Should you not have listened then? You know that time you prayed and you asked me to take care of that coworker for you who's really bothering you? You know that time that you prayed to me because you wanted me to take care of a relative who just hasn't been nice to you? You know that time when you prayed to me and you wanted me to take away your pride? You know that time when I told you to take care of your addictions, or I told you to stop comparing yourself to others? When I told you to stop filling up your own bank account? Did you listen? Were you listening? God already knows the heart of the people. He doesn't need a ritual to be reminded of. And he says to them, did you really fast for me? Was that really for me? Or when it all went down, when the news broke, when whatever you had hidden in your closet was exposed, when the apology came forward that you never actually said, when there was a financial collapse and all of a sudden everything you had been hoarding in your bank account disappeared, was it then that you decided? I think all the people Zechariah was speaking to definitely knew the answer to that question. He said, when you practice your faith, whatever that looks like, are you giving God something? Or are you doing something for yourselves? Zechariah goes on. He doesn't let up. Thus says the Lord of hosts, render true judgments. Show kindness and mercy to one another. Do not oppress the widow, the fatherless, the sojourner, or the poor. Let none of you devise evil against another in your hearts. You want a ritual? Those are the rituals God's talking about. You want a ritual? Love one another. Because God doesn't want to see you do something different. He wants you to be something different. He wants you to be changed. He wants our lives to examine and then to reflect what He's done for us. God wants true transformation in us. He wants our Monday selves to look much better than our Saturday selves. He wants Sunday to do something in our lives so that our character changes. And through the voice of Zechariah, he's saying, look, you guys haven't changed. You're not fasting for me. In 528 BC, Zechariah said these words. In the 21st century, Reverend John Ortberg said, the world is tired of people who have Christian bumper stickers on their car, Christian fish signs on their trunks, Christian books in their shelves, Christian stations on their radios, Christian jewelry hanging around their neck, and nothing has changed. It's about authenticity. Zechariah continues. But they refused to heed. They shrugged their shoulders. They stopped up their ears so they could not hear. Yes, they had hearts that were like flint. They refused to hear the law which the Lord of hosts had sent through His Spirit and former prophets. Who starts the process of having a ritual? The people do. All of a sudden, what we started today becomes that we've always done this. And then the prophets say, no, it was only just for 70 years. And then they start these things, and then they hear, but they refuse to listen. They refuse to obey, they refuse to follow, and then their hearts become what? Like flint. And then, Scripture says, God unleashes his wrath. And we all have watched movies, right? When the wrath comes, woo, it's going to be big. There's going to be plagues, there's going to be earthquakes, there's going to be floods. Everything is going to hell in a handbasket. This is it. God has wrath. We don't listen to God. God doesn't listen to us. That is God's wrath. And for those people who don't believe in God and don't believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who cares? They didn't believe in it anyhow. They thought they had all the control in the world, and that when they die, they just become dirt. It's no big deal. But for those of us who are starting to believe, those of us who are questioning, those of us who affirm by wearing stuff around our necks and listening to certain kinds of music, those of us who say we're followers of God, think about the wrath if God stops listening to you. You're now left out there in the wilderness. You're left out there in the desert. You're left out there in exile. You're left to just whatever's going to happen naturally in the world. And when we don't listen to God and God doesn't listen to us, then we become separated from God. And you know what separation from God is called? Sin. Sin. Yeah, we'd like sin to be a list of things we do and don't. That would make it easy, wouldn't it? If I do these things and I don't do these things, then I'm not committing sin. It gets even easier. You don't want to be sinful? Don't separate yourself from God. Boom. It's literally that easy. God can't be in the presence of sin. So you don't want to sin? Don't do those things that separate you from God. And if you're not listening, and he's not listening, how close are you really? You're not. If you're one of those people who comes to me and says, oh, Pastor, my prayers are not being heard, I'm going to ask you, are you listening? And when you're listening and God speaks, do you obey? Do you truly hear what God is saying to you? Because if he's saying to you, you need to put that down or put that away or stop doing that or do this and do that, are you following what he's saying? I know for some of you, right now, this morning, you woke up and you knew God was working in your life. You knew it. Maybe it was annoying, maybe it just didn't seem like it could be possible, maybe it sounded like, this recurring dream, or this song, or this voice. I hear that a lot. I have this voice in my head that won't leave me alone. Maybe it's any one of those things, and when you decided not to listen, the separation began. When we listen, our lives are transformed. Our Monday self becomes completely different than our Saturday self because of Sunday. Look, you can hang whatever you want to hang around your neck. You can listen to whatever music you want to listen to. You can say that Jesus is your Lord all day long, but if you don't make an effort to obey at what he's saying to us, then none of that matters at all. And people see it. And it's the people who are thinking about it. It's the people who are trying to make the decision to come over. It's the people who are wondering about God. It's the people who are asking, who is Jesus Christ? It's the people who are thinking, well, maybe I'll go to Sunday, but I'm going to feel really uncomfortable. Those are the people who see it. In the Gospel of Matthew in chapter 7, nobody who says to me, Lord, Lord, will get into the kingdom of heaven. Only those who do the will of my Father will be in heaven with me. Savoring God without serving God gets us nowhere. Worshiping the worth of God without walking in the will of God Monday through Saturday will get us nowhere. Every Sunday when you stand and you do your 2-minute turnaround and you pass the peace of Christ and you greet each other in Christian love, that's a ritual. And it doesn't do us any good if we stop there and don't continue to do those things Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, in our lives. If worship, when we come together, is the release of our love and our joy for God in the way that we sing out, no matter what you sound like. Because here's a tip. God, your Creator, gave you the voice you have. When you don't sing, you're telling God he goofed. Try that one out for size. When you sing out, you tell God, you made me, you created me, you love me, you gave me this voice. And I'm going to sing my praises to you. Because I know to your ear, there's nothing better. What happens outside of these four walls tells the world about who Jesus Christ is. This morning we're going to gather in just a few seconds and we're going to gather for communion. We're going to come to the table and we're going to practice the Lord's Supper. It is my deepest desire that worship in this place is worthy of God's presence. It's my deepest desire that as we come forward, all of our love and praise and worship will be magnified. And that we won't come forward so that other people see us come forward. We won't be worrying about what we're wearing when we come forward. We won't be worrying about whether I put my right hand over my left or my left hand over my right. Do I bow? Do I put my head down? Do I put my head up? What are the correct words to say? We won't worry about whether the bread is wheat or gluten-free or brown or white, or did I get the crust or the corner? We won't worry about the taste of the juice. But when we come forward, we'll come forward because we listened. We heard his call. And now we obey. Loving Jesus comes from being loved by Jesus. And this is the heart of his love for us. That he died for you on the cross. I'm going to call the worship team to come